Greetings and salutations, YouTube. This is Fragments of Memory, aka your friendly neighborhood armchair philosopher. Now, I wanted to discuss women. Not necessarily in a bashing way, not necessarily in a cheerleading way, but I want to discuss when women do file their complaints, and some of those complaints, many of those complaints can be legitimate, are legitimate. Among them being, especially here in the black community, we talk about colorism. We talk about some form of abuse, some form of neglect, some form of abandonment. And more often than not, many times we as men are quick to dismiss their claims. Because I think one of the reasons men are sort of silent on the claims of women is, one, we don't have to experience it. It's the whole somebody else's problem. Now, if you've ever read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, written by one Douglas Adams, the late great Douglas Adams, he wrote Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And there was in the book series, there was a spaceship that basically could be on a gigantic football field and nobody would see it because it had this engine or this device on the ship called the SEP, or the somebody else's problem device. And basically the whole idea was somebody else's problem device would be nobody would want to deal with the fact of a spaceship being in the middle of a football field, so people would just automatically ignore it due to the power of the device. This plot device would be used in the BBC sci-fi series Doctor Who, where they explain why the TARDIS, which is a blue police box, isn't really paid attention to by a lot of people, and is due to something known as a perceptual filter. So it's not making you invisible, but people just ignore it because it's somebody else's problem. And that's sort of what we do with women's issues. When it comes to, let's say a woman talks about rape, or a woman talks about colorism. I know that there's one YouTuber by the name of Chrissy who talks a lot about colorism and how many darker skinned and brown skinned black girls feel bad because ultimately their beauty and their looks are not promoted. And unfortunately, I do think that is a travesty. However, there are so many black men, yours truly included, that we don't acknowledge it. Our silence is even more deafening and damning than if I were to say light-skinned women are better than dark-skinned women. But my silence on the subject, simply because, one, I'm not affected by it, so I don't pay attention to it. Now, in addition to that, not only do we have that, the second thing is anytime a lady or a woman lodges a complaint, our knee-jerk reaction is to go, well, you're complaining about this, but you've done the same thing was done to me, or I've experienced difficulties as a man. Sort of, it's the whole you do it too argument. And this goes back to a video where I did, it was called Who Farted, and how people don't really admit to a fart. They'll swear up and down on a stack of Bibles that, hey, I didn't fart, even though they know good and doggone well they did. It's the whole thing of nobody likes to admit to being nobody wants to be the bad guy. Nobody wants to admit that they've been irresponsible. So, and this is speaking in general. This is not speaking to any particular individual situation. So in some respects, yes, I'm with the sisters. Like, yes, I think that there are legitimate complaints that sisters file. Don't get me wrong, I still think that there is so-called black female fuckery, excuse my language, but you know, that's the term that's being thrown around. I think that goes on too. I think there's a lot of skullduggery, chicanery, foolishness, nonsense that women do, but just because we may illustrate and have criticisms of what the sisters do, it doesn't take any blame or any misdeeds we've done off, doesn't get us off the hook. So that's just something I wanted to put out there. This isn't me, quote unquote, simping or caping or whatever. This is just me saying, as an objective view, as an objective observer, this is what I observe. Because I've noticed in me where I'll get a knee-jerk reaction. A woman talks about rape, and my first instinct is to go, well, not all men. And all that lady is doing is expressing her truth, not necessarily the absolute 100% gospel truth, but she's presenting a truth. She's saying, hey, in this world, due to my gender, due to my sex, due to my skin color and my sex, which those two intersect, I have experienced this. These are my experiences, and I'm shedding light on those experiences just so we can at least try to do something about it. But unfortunately, everybody doesn't want to be the monster. Nobody wants to be the monster. Nobody wants to be the bad guy or perceived as the bad guy. And I say, to hell with that. Let's just fix the problem. If you're sitting around saying the light-skinned woman is better than the dark-skinned woman, based on what? Is she more morally sound than the dark-skinned woman? Does she look better? And I've seen both pretty and ugly dark and light-skinned girls and women, so that's not necessarily my issue. But I recognize that many of these young ladies have to deal with certain things, jump certain hurdles, and fight certain battles that I don't have to fight just on the grounds of I'm a guy. I got my own battles that I fight. So I would say I'd recommend showing some sympathy to what is going on in that particular sister situation. Let's not be so quick to write her off. Let's hear her out before we dismiss her. I think our first impulse is we feel the kickback or the accusation, and we wanna throw it back. So we go, you do it too, and that doesn't get us anywhere because it's a perpetual state of the blame game. And instead of us fixing the problems and looking at them and seeing them for what they really are, we try to mask them, or we try to justify it, or we try to rationalize it, or we try to explain it away. And that gets us absolutely nowhere. Just saying. This doesn't mean that every time something goes down between a guy and a woman, it doesn't mean that the woman is automatically innocent and the man is automatically guilty. But we should hear the sister out. Yeah, I did a video where I basically said not every single woman is innocent and not every single man is guilty. But, and I stick by that. I stand by that. But I also acknowledge there's room for improvement. There's room for growth. There's room for trying to hear the other side out instead of dismissing it because it doesn't fit in with our neat little narrative we have in our heads. Well, that's my 2 cents. Tell me what you think. Be easy like Sunday morning, and peace.